Raven, who recently returned to TNA to pick up his feud with Larry Zbyszko, was the guest for TNA's monthly conference call with the media on May 9th. He said he took 10 weeks off from the wrestling business to lie in bed watching TV to recover from his various health problems. Raven said, "I really abused myself for a long time." Raven also said he was the #1 draft choice in the wrestling death pool for a while before he cleaned himself up.
Insane that exists.
He said he feels re-energized and in love with his mistress, the wrestling business again. He's committed to TNA and he's not interested in being part of WWE's revitalization of ECW.
I want Raven in 2006 WWE ECW.
Working with the zombie.
Dang, I want Raven to get the Sabu 1 John Cena match on Raw.
Raven and Cena, would it be good? I'm not sure.
Well, because Cena's an old-time plunder guy that gets underrated for it. So give me John Cena versus Raven and Plunder.
They probably would have a pretty good match, especially if it was an 8-minute TV match.
Yeah.
Jay Hassman, whose background includes working for WWE, TNA, UFC,
the House
WCW.
Organ?
No, different person.
Ah.
Though it would be very funny if the man who defrauded TNA went on to be CM Punk's personal mouthpiece. Is Houseman still around?
Yeah, the House of Wrestling still... I'm gonna go to the House of Wrestling right now. We're gonna see what latest scoop they have.
Yeah, what's the latest big story that the House of Wrestling has?
Exclusives.
Oh,
February 14th. Another TNA office shakeup following Scott D'Amore exit. Exclusive.
They haven't had a scoop in 3 months.
Apparently not. Well, Punk's not an AEW anymore, so he's not pissy.
And he's off injured, even though he's on TV every week.
Yeah, so no Houseman exclusive since February 14th. Oh my, look at his merch.
Why do they have merch?
It's the logo. It's the logo plus House of Wrestling.
Ooh.
And there's In Your House, an In Your House logo parody, which is actually that's kind of fire. I can't lie.
We were talking about Hassman here rather than Houseman, who, if you remember from 2002,
the
defrauded. If you remember from 2000,
womp.
Stop it. Don't you Billy Gunn this man's name. Remember when that was an Edge and Christian insult? It's I'm not going to Billy Gunn my King of the Ring.
Yeah, wasn't that, oh, that was him. I thought it was The Rock.
That was because when Edge won it the year later, he's I'm not going to Billy Gunn this.
How mean to young Billiam.
They were right. But if you remember, Jay Hassman was the person who defrauded TNA about pay-per-view numbers in 2002.
I'm familiar.
Yes. So he was arrested on April 29th on counts
fraud?
related to embezzlement, grand larceny, and forgery related to his job at Team Services. He has a June 2nd court date hearing in a case pending in Nassau County. Hassman is charged in relation to his previous job with Team Services, which works major companies in promoting pay-per-view events. He was the vice president of pay-per-view and marketing with WCW during both its good periods and its fall. Later, he attempted to put together a group to buy both ECW as well as WCW when the promotions were collapsing. Even though ECW was financially in horrible shape, Paul Heyman turned down the Hassman offer, not believing they had the financial backing claimed. He was probably right.
Well, Paul Heyman knows about defrauding people with how much money he has.
He was heavily involved in the startup of TNA as a business partner and employee. At first, there was a quick falling out when TNA officials accused Hassman of lying about pay-per-view numbers, telling them numbers were exaggerated well past any reasonable estimate, and gave them the impression they were doing 80,000 buys the first few weeks, when in reality they were doing 25,000, 15,000, and 10,000.
You couldn't even knock it up to 30,000 guys.
No, big week, guys. We did 35. He's no, 80. We did 80. TNA, through Jerry Jarrett, sued Hassman over that and other charges, while Hassman sued TNA back, claiming they misrepresented to him the amount of financial backing they had to start the venture, as he would have never been involved unless they had at least $5 million in funding. Both sides dropped their suits against each other simultaneously.
So they were both right.
Or both wrong.
They were both right about being in the wrong.
Which seems to be the story of TNA.
Yeah.
Shane Douglas did an interview this past week upon returning after his stay in rehab for an Oxycontin addiction. Douglas said he started using them under prescription with 2 pills a day, but built up to where he was taking 50 a day, including gobbling 15 pills at a time. Douglas said in December, when his second son was born, he realized he better clean up, saying he'd have hated if he grew up with the stigma their father died of a drug overdose. TNA officials told him when he asked for time off that he'd have his job waiting for him when he came back. Though not as a backstage interviewer anymore, JB has firmly taken that from him.
Yeah.
Douglas said going through withdrawal was absolute hell. He was vomiting every 5 to 10 minutes for weeks, constant diarrhea, dehydration. I call it the worst flu you've ever had multiplied by 50. He said just moving from the couch to the bathroom was a major chore.
Sounds awful.
Don't take drugs, kids!
Well, if you do, just make sure they're
Yes, be responsible, kids.
Take the cool drugs.
Take no drugs. I've never taken drugs. I'm the most boring man on earth.
I've never taken drugs either.
Of course. Bill Goldberg posted on his website that he's been talking with TNA, which is actually several-month-old news. Goldberg did get a first actual money offer from TNA this month, but turned it down. Right now, with his son just born, it would have been very difficult for him to do anything. Even later, it will take a ton of money, and those who are pretty much aware of what is going on are doubtful TNA's offer will come close to what he'd be willing to work for, and that the deal is unlikely to happen. Goldberg is financially set for life and gets tons of offers for wrestling and even some for MMA, not to mention public appearances, but still sees it as his market value is the same as it was in 1998. Goldberg's wife Wanda gave birth to the couple's first child prematurely on May 10th, a 5-pound, 8-ounce boy named Gage, AJ Goldberg. The son was due on June 10th, but he is doing fine.
Is that Goldberg's large son?
That's Goldberg's large son!
Nice.
The man seen on WWE television.
Man. The child.
There's that thing where like people posted photos of him from when he was on WWE TV like 10 years ago, and it's like normal looking child, and now he's like jacked football player. It's like, that's Bill Goldberg's son.
Can't wait till he dominates NXT 2.0.